trying to get this going. How is everyone? Oh, clearly I am not the best person to be doing this. But I was trying to do this on both devices right now. So lost connection on one device. Do you see this? This is me trying to do multiple things at the same time. Let's see here. Lost connection. Oh my goodness. This is why technology is so crazy. That'd be awesome. Let's see here. It says I have an unstable connection. This is live technology. I don't understand. And that I've lost connection. So I'm going to try and, it says trying to switch Wi-Fi data. Let me switch off of Wi-Fi on this one. Reconnecting. All right. Hopefully I'm on here. It says I've lost connection on here, but I'm not quite sure why. Because we have some strong Wi-Fi in this house. So, Trina, how are you today? I'm going to be talking about content marketing. And if you haven't had a chance to view any of my website or any of our TikToks or Instagram, that's all that I do. I am talking about content marketing tips because I think a lot of people miss the boat when it comes to really creating content that means something and has some sort of value. And I did a recent TikTok that basically was talking about adding value. And if you are adding value, a lot of people supposedly are going to flock to your account. And I think that is a lot of vagueness. So when you hear people say this to you, you might actually be like, what exactly are they talking about? What do they mean when they say add value? What do they mean when they're telling me that I need to add value to my content? And so I wanted to talk about this today because a lot of times people will say that, but they won't tell you how to do that. And so I'm going to be doing my hair while we're talking because I'm actually prepping to do some TikTok videos myself and some reels. And so for me, I look at adding value as adding yourself. And a lot of times people don't want to do that. Let's say you're a business owner that doesn't want to put your face on camera. That sometimes is really daunting, right? That means, oh, maybe my boss is going to see this, right? Or maybe my coworkers are going to see this, right? I just watched this Netflix video. It was like a documentary about OnlyFans, right? And I have never been on OnlyFans. I looked at it and was like, oh, okay, I guess that means people want to showcase what they do. Apparently, it's a lot more than that, right? So what I was watching was somebody who was concerned about showing their face or showing their body on this like other social media account because they didn't want their coworkers or they didn't want their boss or whatever to see what they were doing. Similarly, on places like TikTok or Instagram or Snapchat or any sort of other social media account, Twitter, there's a lot of times where people don't want their either significant other or their boss or their or anyone that is of importance to them to know that they're doing something else, right? To know that they're doing something that may or may not be approved of, right? And sometimes it's the other part of it. It's maybe you have a business that you don't want other people to see that you've started a business, or you don't want their input if it's just in the early stages, right? So sometimes it's that you're not ready to show it, but it's out there, right? Because when you look at the algorithm, right, you might have synced your contacts when you first started joining this, the social media platform. And so then it starts sending your contacts every single time you go live or every single time, you've joined some sort of group on Facebook. It will like notify these people, right? And that's a lot, right? It's just a lot of things. And you might see this steaming, but I'm doing my hair and it's a really old flat iron. So it's got a little extra juice in it as far as being able to put off some some smoke, but we are fine over here. So when you think about putting out your content, and maybe it's a business that isn't ready for people to see it yet, I always look at it this way. The more you put out there, the better you're going to get. And if you haven't had a chance to try something because you're scared that, you know, somebody's going to see it, well, you want people to see it, because that's the only way that you're going to get better, is if people see it and they comment and, you know, or they give you positive and constructive, I should say, constructive feedback. Because I love putting stuff out there that I'm just like, whatever, it was what it was at the moment, right? It was a moment in time. And for me, I love being able to see how things are going to go. Now, it's really hard for sometimes when people don't want other people to see their businesses, right? And so I have done a lot of different Instagram reels, or and I did a 30-day Instagram reels challenge on my other Instagram account to test the waters. If you go to my Pinterest account, you can see there's a lot of Pinterest videos that do not have any of myself in them. It's just text and video. And a lot of times that is what you have to do if you don't want to put your face out there. If you go into this TikTok account for College of Style, I think it's tiktok.com/@College of Style, you'll see a lot of videos with just text on them. And that's not because I didn't want to put my face on there. It's because I was trying to figure out what my brand was going to say. And that is really important, is to figure out in your content what your brand is going to say. Because I think it's really great to, plan out your brand messaging and figure out your brand identity. But it also is very important to know that your brand messaging might evolve, right? And it's good to test the waters to see, okay, like, what should my brand be saying at what time, right? So when you are looking at creating content for your business, think about what you want people to know about you, about your business, about your brand. Because if you are putting your stuff out there and it is resonating with people, they'll let you know, because they'll either start following you, they will start commenting, sharing, and liking your content. And when it's that evident, when people are taking action, that is when you can say, okay, let me run with the stuff that worked, right? And I think a lot of times people are just scared to try. And that's a legitimate fear, is to be scared to just do something, right? Because maybe you've never done it before, or maybe you have trouble putting things together, right? But I think that it's really, really important as you get your content together to keep consistency up. And that is going to only help you as you put together your content marketing strategy. And when I talk about content marketing strategy, I mean that you put actually pen to paper or in some sort of spreadsheet what exactly you're going to do to make sure that you are getting the most out of what you are putting out there. Because if you are just throwing stuff up just to see what's going to stick, chances are it's not going to stick. Chances are it's going to fall flat. And the reason that I say that is because no one got ahead. I guess maybe if you got a random viral video, maybe. But nobody was consistently moving the needle without actually measuring what you're putting out there. So if you are putting together your content marketing plan, or you are putting together some sort of strategy, you better have a pen and paper out, or put it into some sort of online program, whether it's, Google, spreadsheets, or whatever is your platform to put together your content strategy. For me, I like to start in just a simple Microsoft Word document, and I like to talk about, what I would like to achieve, putting out my goals, right? And actually saying, okay, well, I want to have XYZ clients, or I want to have XYZ followers by this date. I want to have this many more by this date. Well, so you can actually look at that and say, okay, you've got goals, right? Now, how are you going to achieve those goals? And when you think about content marketing, hi, Carol, it's really important to think about the way that you're going to achieve that. And sometimes it's trial and error, right? But what you need to do is make a plan. And if you have a content marketing plan, hey, is it Keta? I think it's Keta or Quetta, one of the two. If you have a content marketing plan, then that means that you are able to write down what you want to do and in the increments in how you plan on doing it. So if you just simply use your iPhone or your Android, whichever you're using, and you write down in your calendar every single day, I'm going to spend 10 minutes a day actually talking to, and you write down in your calendar every single day, I'm going to spend 10 minutes a day actually talking to my Instagram followers, right? And that means that you have in your goals, you are nurturing your following. You are very interested and invested in what exactly they want out of being a follower of your account. So you're talking to them to say, get some market research done to say, what do you want to see on this account, right? What do you think would help you in your life or your business, right? So you're getting that by just talking to them. You can get the market research by seeing, okay, how many people liked, my content, or you can see it by, how many people shared my content, or you can get it by people actually saving the content. And that's one of the biggest ones, is a lot of people want likes, right? But they turned off, or you can turn off the liking on like Instagram. But if people save your content, then that means that they saw some value in it, right? They saw some sort of value. They saw some sort of really important aspect that was important enough that they were like, they didn't screenshot it, right? They could totally screenshot it, but they actually saved it because they planned on coming back to it. Now, whether or not they do is another thing, but you can get data this way. The other way you get the data is actually talking to your customers, actually talking to your followers, right? Because if you're talking to them, they're not talking back, then that's really a lost opportunity, right? If you're just having a one-way conversation, you're talking to them instead of talking with them, then you're not converting customers. You're just putting out content. And if you're just putting out content because you like seeing it on the page, then that's one thing. But if you're putting out content with the goal of converting a customer, then you want to make sure that the kind of content that you're putting out is the kind of content that is going to solve a problem for your customer or have a transformation, right? You want it to do something for them that is going to make their life better. It is either going to entertain them, inspire them, or educate them and help them move the needle in their business. Now, if you can do that consistently, then people will flock to your account. And at the beginning of this, I was talking about whether or not people know what it means to add value. And I put together a TikTok video, I think yesterday, the day before, that was saying, if you are hearing all of these social media gurus or experts or anybody else tell you, all you have to do is add value. A lot of people don't know what that means, right? And that means that whatever it is that you're putting out there has to have some sort of element of uniqueness. And that means you putting you into your content. It has to have some sort of element of either, like I said, education, entertainment, or inspiration, which means that people are gaining something from it, right? And it also has to be something that is relevant. And that means that it is timely. So if we are talking, I was just doing, I have a podcast called Sweet Bytes with Sandra, and I was doing the podcast yesterday. And I was telling people about how to pitch their project, whether you're pitching an article idea to, to a major media company, like you want to get your article into Vogue or Marie Claire or Glamour or whatever, or Business Insider, or maybe you're pitching yourself as a guest on a podcast, right? But what I was talking about for this specific podcast episode was that if you are doing any sort of pitch, it has to resonate in the first few seconds, right? In the first 60 seconds, right? It has to not, beat around the bush about what you're talking about. And the reason that makes a lot of sense when it comes to social media is that you don't have that kind of time, right? People don't care, right? People don't care. They swipe, they go, they scroll. They don't care unless you care. And that's what I really feel is what people are saying when they say, that you need to add value. And that means that you need to care more. You need to care more about what you're putting out there. Because if you care more and you put more effort into what it is that you're doing, then other people are going to care more, because they're going to see that you put in the time, you put in the work. And I know that a lot of times on social media, it's really sad because you might put in that work. You might put in 30 minutes to an hour on a TikTok reel, right? And you might put in that work and you don't get the result. And when you do that, that doesn't mean that what you did wasn't good. Because a lot of times people put themselves down like, oh my gosh, I just spent 3 hours making this fantastic reel. And then nothing comes of it. And what you do is you pull yourself together, you figure out what it is that was working in that video, whether it was how you set it up, the planning that was involved in putting it together, and then you look at some of the things that you didn't do, right? Some of the things that you didn't do, which were maybe adding text to the beginning of your TikTok video, or maybe it was you didn't have a quick jump cut, right? Or maybe it was that you didn't actually put enough content in there to make anybody want to stick around, right? And so if you're analyzing some of these pieces of content that are out there, whether it's on Instagram Reels or TikTok videos or on a blog, hey Pascal, bonjour. If you're doing any of that, then it's really important to figure out how your content marketing is supposed to land in your mind, right? Think about how content marketing, all the content that you're creating is supposed to land, and then figure out why it didn't land that way. And if you're working the way I like to do, which is working backwards, right? So you're putting together this plan, and then you're going to implement the plan. And when you go through the analysis, you're going to try to work backwards and say, okay, what worked about that? Was it my process that worked? Okay, cool. I've got my process. I've got my plan. If the process works, and it may be just the entertainment value of it, or it might have been that maybe it's not the topic that works for your particular niche, some of those things are easily fixed, right? But a lot of people give up too soon. They just give up too soon, and they don't actually try something else, right? So if your niche is talking about beauty products and you're a beauty influencer or blogger, and you decide one day to talk about, you know, what inspires you, and you decide to talk about farming, that might have hit with some of your people. But the people who are used to seeing you, you know, doing your hair or doing your makeup or introducing a new lip balm, they might not get it, right? They might not put the connection together. And so it's your job to connect the dots. And so I often hear about people who are putting together content, putting it out there, not seeing anything work, and then going, I'm just going to give up, right? And they don't actually figure out why people didn't stick around, right? They don't figure out why people didn't actually stick with them through that sort of transformation. It might have been how you delivered the message, right? So when you're thinking about your content marketing, you can't just switch it up so drastically that people don't recognize you with the new sort of format. You have to take your content and transform whatever it is that you're trying to do and make sure that the message resonates, because it's in the format that people understand is supposed to come from you, right? You can be, a super influencer and have a video flop. It happens, right? And I think a lot of times people think that, well, everybody who has, massive following, massive accounts, every video does well. And that is not the case. That is so not the case. And that's because sometimes they have put more time and effort into certain videos than others. And that means that when they are putting their content together, it's the same as you putting your content together. They might have a little bit of an advantage if they have a lot of followers, but that doesn't mean that they have that many customers, right? So if you're in a business and you are looking at all these people who have a ton of followers, that doesn't mean that all of those followers are customers. And that's why some of the bigger brands are having really hard times making a difference on social media, because people like to look at content, but that doesn't mean that they're buying the content. You have to actually put together content that moves people enough to buy what you're selling. And that means that if you are selling something that is at a price point that people aren't willing to pay for, then you have to make it worth, make that worth exactly what you want them to pay for it, right? So if you're attracting the wrong client, or you haven't really figured out who your client is, then that is really, really a problem that you personally can solve, right? You can start figuring out who your clients are, where they live, what they like, and you can start serving it up. Now, if you haven't figured that out, then you need to do your customer personas. You need to figure out where your clients live. You need to figure out how those people are living, acting, doing all the things that they love, so that you can really move the needle on your business. I love when I am talking to people and they're like, oh my gosh, I love what you're doing. I need to rebrand myself. I'm going to talk to you very soon. And I'm like, hey, let's talk now. You can set up a free discovery call and talk to me right now and figure out, hey, am I the person that's going to help you in your business, or is it somebody else? And that's one of the things that you need to get off the table, right? Is it me that's going to help you, or is it somebody else? Because if you are in a business and you're trying to talk to whomever it is about your services or products, if you don't just have the conversation, you'll never know. Like, it might not be a right fit, and you might have, this back and forth for 6 months with somebody who wants to hire you. But at the end of the day, after you have a conversation, you might say you would be better served working with this person, because that's a specialty of somebody else, right? So it's really important that you are transparent about what you do, your business, your products and your services. But it's also important that if somebody wants to work with you, that you get them on the phone, you get them on a Zoom, you talk to them, you figure out, okay, this is what I do and this is what you need. And these are the ways that we can figure that out. And sometimes it doesn't work, right? Sometimes it's not a right fit. Sometimes it's never going to be the right fit. And I know a lot of people take on clients that they don't actually fit well with, right? They don't work well together. And so if you're taking on clients that you are like, oh, I hate working with this person, or I don't want to work with this person anymore, right? It's really hard for some people who are just starting out to say no. And so I would say always have that initial conversation when you're going to work with someone, so that you can figure out, is this going to work between you and the client? Or is this not going to work, right? Because maybe they're flaky, or maybe they want a service that you don't offer, right? So when you talk about content marketing with your clients, or if you're doing content marketing for yourself, it's really important to think about, like I said, what do you do and who do you serve? Because if you don't know that, then you're just going to be putting up content that means nothing. What I do is content marketing. It's design-led content marketing. And so I combine the design aspect with the strategic messaging. And that is really important, because when you are putting out a visual of, representation of your brand, you need to have the strategic communication side to back it up as well. So if you haven't had a chance to actually look at your messaging, it might not match your visual, right? It might not be a comparable, right? So you may put all this time and energy into creating viral videos, but at the end of the day, you're not converting because the messaging behind it is not matching up, right? So you might say, oh, well, I am putting out a video that is all about, how to ride a bike, right? But in your captions, you might not be telling people what they're going to get. What's the benefit of learning how to ride a bike, right? You might have fun. You might let loose. You might be able to, live a better life, or be more active, or lose weight, or feel more healthy, or whatever the benefits or transformation is. You might not be putting that in the caption. So just because you have a visual that is really cool, you might not be converting your customers because you haven't had a chance to match the messaging with the visual. And I think that that's where a lot of people mess up, is they don't actually match the branding, the great brand colors and the logo and the tagline. They don't match that with the actual messaging. And so if you haven't had a chance to look at what you're saying, not just what you're looking like online, but what you're saying online, then it's really hard to convince other people to buy your stuff. Because if you're not convincing, then it's not convincing anybody else, right? So it's really important as you move forward with your content marketing to have a visual that matches your communication style. So if you have a caption, let's talk about captions really quick. So if you have a caption, you want to have a hook, right? You want to bring people in. It might be a question, it might be a statistic, it might be something that you've seen, a case study that you want to introduce. It might just be a simple acknowledgement. Like, are you working on a brand new business, right? Well, most likely, yes, right? If they're on your page, yes, I'm working on a new business. Have you encountered XYZ, right? Do you find yourself doing XYZ, right? Or maybe it's a story that you're telling about your personal experiences. And so you're bringing people into learning more about what you've experienced as a business owner, what you have seen out there in the business world, and what you don't want to happen to somebody else, or a shortcut that you can give them, or some sort of tutorial that you're offering. Whatever it is your call to action at the end of it, right? So if you have all this information, but don't actually give it to anyone because you want people to purchase it, that's the one thing that I would say don't do. Because a lot of people don't want to give anything away for free because they're like, well, if I give too much away for free, why would they buy my stuff? And it's really the opposite. If you give away great information for free, then what will happen is they will keep coming back and they will go, wow, if I can get this kind of information just by following their Instagram account, what would they do for me and my business if I actually hired them, right? If I actually hired them to look at my business, to go through and say, oh, this is an area that you could use some assistance on. This is an area where you could benefit from reworking or redoing, right? This is an area where you could figure out how to, pump up your conversion rate or whatever it might be. So if you are worried about giving too much away for free, giving the house away, it's not going to happen. Unless somebody, I think a lot of people think about this with email marketing too. If you are giving away, a free tip every single, email that you have for your email following, your list, a lot of people are like, why would I do that? They're not going to ever buy my product. I'm like, if somebody sticks around 365 days of the year to read your emails, then good for them, right? They are dedicated. They are dedicated, and maybe you will have changed their life, right? Maybe if they can stick around that entire time and read your emails, then good for them for sticking around and being committed to reading every single email and trying to implement every single thing. Now, are all of your emails going to resonate with their business? No, right? Because not everything can be personalized if you're writing an email to a lot of people. But it might help them enough to have them recommend to their friends or colleagues to actually join your email list, which might help you in the end by bringing somebody in that might actually hire you, right? So the more that you do and the more that you put out, don't worry about giving anything away for free. Because sometimes it's really just a matter of having your sense of being able to say what you want to say, right? Being able to put out some content that means something to you. And sometimes it has nothing to do with anybody else. It just has to do with you. So when you think about content marketing, you want to think about two things. You want to think about the visual and you want to think about the message. Because when you have both and they're on par with each other, then you are way more likely to convert customers. When you think about how many times you have How many times you have put out something and you're like, oh, it wasn't it, right? But the next time you put something out, you can fix that, right? You can fix that. And it's really all about that evolution. Go back and look at your first like TikTok video, right? And look at how far you've probably come in just doing a few TikTok videos, right? Sometimes people will look at their TikToks and be like, oh, cringe worthy, right? Not good, right? And I look at some of mine and I'm like, it happened, right? It happened. And that doesn't mean that you have to take it down, right? Because it's really actually a good thing to see your progress. And I think it's really good to just leave it up. Leave it up there for people to go, wow, look at how far this person has come in such a short amount of time. Because I do think that the more you do something, the better you get at it, right? The more you do something, the better you will be. And if you haven't had a chance to believe in yourself or take a chance on yourself, this is the perfect time to start doing that. Because if you know in your heart that you want to start a business, or you want to do something fun, or you just want to explore and see if it hits, right? Because you might do something that really hits. This is the perfect time to do it. Because a lot of times, during the last 2 years, people were like, oh, I'm going to do it. 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 And they never did it, right? Or the people who did try stopped. So even though there's a lot more people trying to jump on the bandwagon of getting on TikTok and going viral and doing that whole thing, that doesn't mean that there aren't the same number of people who fell off, right? The same number of people who tried to get on TikTok and do TikTok videos who finally were like, I'm good, right? And they decided to hop off the platform. So if you are consistent in putting out your content, then the people who follow you will consistently come back for more and more and more. And that's because the people that they may have been following on, for other profiles or other channels, they're gone, right? So it's in your best interest to consistently put out content, and content that, like I said, the visual is just as good as the message. Because if you don't have a message that goes with your visual, meaning your captions, your hashtags, all of it, then you're not going to convert your customers. And that means that they're not going to recommend you to other people. It means they're not going to like your stuff, they're not going to save it, they're not going to share it. But if you do have a visual that is just as good as your caption and your messaging that is strategic, and I say, and I'm really stressing strategic, because if you put together a content marketing strategy, which means actually putting together a plan with an actual goal at the end that is actually measurable, right? Then you can figure out where people fell off, where people came on, right? Where you actually hit those points that you were like, oh, this is the nugget that is going to make the needle move for my business. That is really important, because if you haven't had a chance to do both of those together, then chances are you're doing one really good and one really not so good, right? Or you're kind of hitting it sometimes and missing it other times, right? But when you get those spot on together, that's when you're truly golden, right? That's when you can say, people got the message and they were entertained or inspired at the same time, right? And I think that those are the ways that when you're looking at your business, you can move the needle even quicker, is when you understand what you're trying to do. Because if you don't understand it, chances are you're not very good at conveying the message that's going to get people out there that don't know your business and don't know you and don't know your story to get it as well. So if you're needing to work with somebody that is, a brand strategist or a communication strategist like myself, then that's fine, because sometimes people need help, right? Sometimes people need help in figuring out exactly what it is that they're trying to do, or narrowing down the message that they're trying to convey. And that really comes down to brain dump, right? You want to brain dump all those things that you want to get out, and then you want to reorganize it in a way that makes sense for your audience. So if you have, you're brainstorming, you're bouncing ideas off of your friend or your colleague or whatever, and then you actually start to formulate your content ideas, well, it has to be in a format that's digestible for your clients. Your clients have to be able to understand exactly what it is that you're doing. It has to be something that they can say, oh, I can implement that in my business, or wow, that would transform my business and literally my life, right? So if you have ideas that you've brainstormed and put down to paper or put in your Asana or Trello or whatever, and then you haven't had a chance to figure out what format works for your clients, then it's not going to work ever, right? Because if you don't test the waters and say, oh, okay, this works for my client base, it means that I have to have, 10-second videos and a call to action, or whatever. Or they really like photos in a series, or maybe they like, really 80s music to be behind it. Whatever it is that your clients like, you need to be doing, right? Because if you're doing it in a format that they don't like, chances are they're not going to buy it from you, right? They're not going to buy what you're selling. And it's really important as you put together those ideas, that the ideas are taking somebody on a journey. And that really comes down to storytelling. And if you haven't had a chance to figure out how to tell a really good story, then that's one skill that I think that everybody needs to really work on. And that means figuring out what makes people feel something during a story. What makes people actually sit up and pay attention during a story? What actually is going to stay with someone and is memorable about what you're talking about? Because if you become really good at storytelling, then people will start telling your story. And that's like what, a brand evangelist or some sort of, if you have a loyalty program, all the people who are raving fans of yours, start telling your story. Think about, all the music artists that we know, and you're like, oh yeah, Madonna, she was, back in the 80s, she, went and made all this music and she was a dancer. You're telling her story, right? And that's what you need for other people to do. So if you can become a really good storyteller and you can take your brand story and create the visuals and the messaging that connects and resonates with your core audience, then that imagery and messaging can then be transmitted through all of your brand evangelists, all your brand loyalists, right? So then you don't work, I would say you don't, it's not like you don't work as hard, but you have other people doing the work for you, because no, they're not getting paid, but they're telling your story. When people say, oh yeah, did you see so-and-so got married? You're telling that person's story, right? It might just be an announcement, right? Or so-and-so had a baby. You're telling that person's story. And that means that you believe in, whatever it is that I shouldn't say believe. You are connected somehow, some way with that artist, that actor, that, personality enough that you are taking the time out of your day to tell somebody else's story. Now, whether or not you are criticizing that story or amplifying negativity around that story is a different, conversation. But having somebody tell your story for you, it's that word of mouth that it's priceless, right? It's priceless. And if you can get that going for your brand, then it's not that you don't work as hard, but you have more people spreading your story than if it was just you. And I think that that's really important. And I know that I have seen so many people come in and out of this live. And I do want to acknowledge, if you have stayed throughout this whole thing, then, I'm so excited that you're here. What I wanted to talk about today was content marketing tips. I'm doing my hair because I am actually going to be batching some content today for my social media. And I think that content batching is something that is underrated. And if you haven't been doing it, I think you need to start. Because if you spend all your days, morning, noon, and night, figuring out what you're going to post on social media, you won't actually get anything done in your business. And so I think that that's really important if you are just starting out, or if you're trying to manage your schedule in a better way. Get organized and start content batching. I think that the weekends, I know a lot of people are like, I don't want to use my weekends to do that. Then don't. Pick a day, right? Pick a day every single week that you are going to content batch or schedule your content, because that is going to help you, number one, stay keen on the features that are offered on social media platforms, but it's also going to help you stay fresh, stay alert, get your your trends and everything on point. And it's also going to keep your content flowing for your audience. And that is what they keep coming back for, is they want to know what you're up to, what you're doing, what your business is about, how you can help them. All of those things are really important as people start moving, as you start moving in the needle on your business, is to content batch, so that you're not losing time working with clients because you're so focused on creating content for social media. I think a lot of times, if you're a content creator, like that's what you do, like great, then you can spend a lot of your time doing that. But if you're a business owner, nobody wants to spend the entire bulk of their week just making content, right? And you want to make it so that you have content that's going to be consistent. So if you're doing some sort of content batching, you want to also consult with your content marketing strategy, right? And if that means that you want to post 3 to 5 videos a day, or if you want to, create content that's going to last for a month, then you need to put down some serious notes so that you're not struggling to figure out what content's going to work for you. And the best content, I think, is something that's going to help you tell your brand story. It might be fun, it might be inspiring, it might help people have a little bit of an escape from whatever it is that they're doing in their life. If you can provide all of that, then that's great. But I think that it's really important if you can put together your strategy in a way that helps people make the most of their day, their business, their life, their scenario, their situation, wherever they're at in their life. If you can make that better, and you can plan it so that maybe you're just putting together your content, and maybe you're just drafting it, right? And then you can add music later. So a lot of people worry about, well, I'm not going to be able to use the trending audio. You know what you can do? Batch all of your content, if it's speaking directly to the camera, and then add the audio as you actually post. And that will help you save some time, because then you're not worried about, okay, well, I missed that trending audio thing. Okay, batch the content that you are going to post for the next week or month or whatever. And if it's just you talking straight to the camera, then you don't have to worry about the audio part, right? You just have to worry about what you're saying to the camera and your visual cuts or whatever. And then after you're done with that, put it in the draft folder, and then come back to it as you post, because you can't actually, yes, there is a native scheduling aspect of TikTok, but if you want to make sure that audio is trending, then you can draft everything that you're doing with your, straight to camera monologue or whatever, and then as you post, add the trending audio so that you know that you are in, the mix as far as what should be trending right now. That's how I would do it if most of your content is actually just speaking directly to the camera. If you're doing something that is, a little more involved as far as creating video content, or something that is, produced a little bit, then it doesn't really matter if you're going through that trending audio at the moment that it hits, right? Because your content will be unique and different, and it won't really matter if you've actually hit that trending audio, because you might start the trend, right? That's another thing that I think a lot of times we miss on content marketing, is that yes, it's great to have the trending audio, because then you might pop up in someone's feed, but it's always super, super relevant if you start the trend, right? So a lot of times this happens with the dance trends on TikTok, is somebody, decides to make a little ditty together, choreograph something, and they use whatever audio they want, right? And then that becomes the trending audio because people want to do that dance. So if you are trying to always follow the trends for audio trends, maybe it's time to flip the script and start the trend, right? Instead of just following it, it can sometimes be really, really liberating to not just say, okay, I'm gonna always do these audio trends, but maybe you start a trend, right? Maybe you just try something new and it becomes the trend. And that's what I think a lot of people who are just starting out really tried to follow that audio trend, which is great. And it's a good strategy to get views and likes and follows and all of that. But if you're not actually trying something new, you never know if you might actually hit it, right? You might actually hit something really amazing and it resonates. It's almost like that, the guy who was drinking his like iced tea or whatever, and the music was like some old school rock band. I'm forgetting the name right now. But like Fleetwood Mac or something like this. If you don't do you, then you're always, thank you so much, then you're always doing what other people are doing, right? And I know that on TikTok and Reels and stuff like that, it's easy to follow trends and it's easy to kind of do the dances and stuff like that. But it is really important that you put your own spin on it. And if you put your own spin on it, then it's very, very important that you acknowledge where the original trend came from, right? So if it's a dance trend, you want to put the DC, like dance choreography is by XYZ person, and tag that person so that you're not just saying, oh, well, I came up with it, right? Because that's not the truth. It's taking your inspiration and then putting some different aspect on it that makes it unique for you, right? That could be where you filmed it. It could be the sequence in which, hey, Anna, it could be the sequence in which you actually did, whatever it is, if it's, some sort of chef recipe, maybe you're putting your own spin on it because you added a certain ingredient, right? But I think it's very important as you go through and create on TikTok or Instagram that not only are you following these audio trends, but that you are taking chances on your own content. Because if you take a chance on your own content, chances are your audience is going to like it because your audience is there for you. It's not there to say, oh, I'm creating for the algorithm. No, honeys, that is not the case. You are creating for your audience. And if your audience likes it, and your audience is 250 people, I think a lot of people make the mistake in thinking that they need 1 million people to follow them. They need 1 million people to like what they're doing. And you know what? If 1 million people walked into your store, right? If you had a store on Melrose, let's say, and 1 million people came into your store, do you have that kind of merchandise on hand? Absolutely not, right? If you had 20,000 people walk into your store, do you have that kind of merchandise on hand? Absolutely not, right? Unless you are Costco, right? Or Walmart or Target or something like that. Hey there. It's really important to know that you don't have that kind of bandwidth, right? And it's not saying don't aim or shoot for that kind of coverage or that kind of following, because it's great to have those many eyeballs on your content. But what really happens is people get really unrealistic about actually being able to service that kind of following, right? If you have a digital product, great. That might be a way for you to get eyeballs on your digital product and they may be able to download your digital product easily. But if 1 million people wanted to get on your website, chances are it would crash, right? So it doesn't even matter if it's a digital product, you probably wouldn't be able to serve 1 million people anyways at the same time. So when you think about audiences and you think about your marketing strategy, if you are worried about having 1 million followers look at your stuff, then I would not focus on audience as your main thing, because that's not realistic. Being viral with your videos is not realistic. Getting consistent about posting your content, getting consistent about acknowledging your audience. Hey, James. Getting consistent about knowing who you are and who you serve online or in person. That's something that you can control. So if you haven't had a chance to look at your content marketing strategy and really put together what I talked about earlier, which is the visual has to be on point and your messaging has to, it's almost like the follow-up, right? Your visual is like, hey, I've got their attention. And then the messaging is like, I'm going to keep their attention. And that last part, which is your call to action, is how you're going to convert them. You either want to, send them to your newsletter so that you can constantly nurture that relationship. You want to have a call to action. Maybe you want them to buy something, right? Buy my book. It's on Amazon. It's called Passion Pipeline, right? That's my book. If you have a chance, look at it on Amazon, right? If you want them to listen to your podcast, right? It might be something free. That's my my free resource for a lot of people. If you go to Amazon, it's on Audible, it's on Spotify, it's on Apple iTunes, it's free. It's called Sweet Bytes with Sandra. You can listen to that and get a lot of digital marketing tips and a lot of empowering women's stories for female entrepreneurs. So if you are looking to get your content marketing strategy to the next level, then you have to have those elements together. But you can't focus on creating for the algorithm. You can't focus on your audience being at 1 million followers. That's not realistic, especially for someone who's just starting out. So if you're a brand new business owner and you're like, hey, I need 1 million followers because that's what's gonna get me, money, that's not happening, right? And we all know this. But it's kind of this like pie in the sky mentality that I think a lot of people are like, oh, if I just had more followers, I'd have more money. And it's like, followers does not equal money, right? If you have the right content for your following and the right strategy to convert that following, then yes, followers can equal money. I don't know what's happening outside. Clearly there's a big truck. But if you are looking at it from a strategic point of view, hey, I'm trying to read your name here. I can't even read. There's so many words in there, or so many letters. If you are thinking from it from a very strategic place, right? Because I think a lot of people don't want to put in the work on the strategy side, and they don't want to put in the work on figuring out what is actually happening with your numbers, right? So if you look, like I can see right now, there's 41 likes, right? And there's maybe 3 or 4 people on my TikTok, and there's a few people on my Instagram right now. So if you're looking at it from a numbers point of view, that's kind of a lot of likes, right? But if 43 people were in my room right now, in my living room right now, then that would be a lot of people. And I think a lot of times we are looking at the numbers game in a different way, right? We're looking at it in a different way and not looking at it from a perspective of this is good for me, right? Instead of this is good for someone else, right? We compare our numbers to other people instead of going, hey, I jumped, right? I just started for myself, I just started an Amazon Live, right? That I'm going live every single week on Amazon, and I'm talking about my favorite products that I love. And yesterday I did a whole segment on gifts for her for the holiday season. I have 3 followers on Amazon Live, right? On my Amazon influencer profile, because I just started, right? I think a lot of people worry about having, what is your name? Hey, hello, G Many. Yes, hello. I think a lot of people worry about how many followers they have right at the beginning. And you probably don't even have enough content for people to know if they do like you, right? Or if they do want to follow you. And that goes to show you in real life too. It's like, hey, I hung out with this person. Yeah, you're not going to be best friends right away with every single person, right? And a lot of people mistake that initial, like, hey, I put out 5 different posts on Instagram. How come they don't follow me? And it's like, you know what? You don't have enough content on there for them to even go, I might like their content, right? You might have a lot of people who are really like, let's see what she does, right? And they look back and they're like, let's see what she's going to do. Because a lot of times it's not about, did I post today? It just isn't. Not everyone's going to see your content. That's the biggest thing that I think a lot of people mistake on social media. There's TikTok, there's Twitter, there's Snapchat, there's Instagram, there's Facebook, there's Medium, there's Discord, there's so many different platforms. And a lot of times people are like, why didn't they like my stuff? And I'm like, so what? They didn't like your stuff. They probably didn't see it, right? They probably weren't even around because they were working, or they were with their boyfriend or girlfriend, or they don't have time to stalk your account, right? So just because people don't follow you or don't like your stuff doesn't mean that they're not watching. That's another thing about content marketing, that if you are consistent, it doesn't mean that people aren't watching what you're doing. And that's how a lot of brand deals come around, is, you know, Kellogg's or any sort of cereal company or anything like that. It's not that they're not watching, right? Or Tarte Cosmetics, or whatever brands that you follow, Chanel, or, you know, Chloe or Stella McCartney, whoever that you are like rocking in your own life and you're tagging the living daylights out of them, doesn't mean that they're not following what you're doing, right? You might not be in the right space for what they're promoting right now. And you have to think about it. When I was talking about the Sweet Bytes with Sandra podcast that I did yesterday, I did my podcast all about pitching your project, whether it's to a VC firm or to a major magazine, or if it's pitching yourself as, you know, a guest on someone's show or a podcast. The biggest thing that you have to think about is, what is the other person's audience, right? Because you can't pitch your story. Let's say I have a beauty story and I want to pitch it to Business Insider. Are they writing about beauty on Business Insider? The name is Business Insider. So if it's a beauty article about business, then yes. But if it's just a gift article, probably not, because they probably have staff writers that do some sort of holiday writing, right? So if you're trying to pitch yourself, think about the content. Like we're talking about content marketing today. Think about your content in the context of the other person's audience if you're doing the pitching. If you're thinking about the content for your own audience, think about what they want to hear, what they want to see, what's going to transform their life, right? A lot of times people look at content marketing and they do what is good for them, right? They write what they want to write, they write what they like, you know, what they like to eat or what they like to do, and they forget that there's metrics behind that, right? You can look on Google Analytics and see how many people are showing up on your website. You can look at all of your analytics on Instagram or TikTok and see how many people have showed up to your live, or how many people are, you know, interested by how many saves and how many shares and how many comments and all of that. If they're asking you questions, all of those things. And if you're not looking at that side of things, then you're not doing your part, right? You're just hoping that people want what you're serving up. And if you start to tweak your message and you start to tweak what you see on the back end to say, oh, they really like this thing, or oh, they really like this kind of music, or oh, I added a caption that was really in depth, that's what they really want to see, and you start doing it, then that's what they're going to gravitate toward. They're going to gravitate towards someone who's paying attention to them. And that makes a difference no matter what industry you are in. So if you see on Instagram stories, you see your favorite brand asking you if you drink coffee or tea, then you think that they're interested in whether or not you drink coffee or tea. Chances are they're using that data and saying, well, maybe we should get somebody on here who really represents coffee, because our audience, they're 80% coffee drinkers. So maybe if I bring in an influencer who's all about coffee, they're going to really resonate with that, right? So it's all about looking at what you're doing and what's resonating, and then running with that data. Because if you're not actually utilizing the data that you have, chances are it's going to go nowhere. You might have a fluke where you have a viral post, but that is not sustainable. Viral posts are not sustainable. I don't care who you are. You might be, the D'Amelios of the world and have a ton of posts that actually, do well. But that doesn't mean that every single person that follows that account is actually a customer. So if you are a business owner, a small business owner, entrepreneur, you're a startup, you're thinking about how your content's going to move your needle on your business, then you have to think about who you are actually creating for. Because if you don't, and you're just creating for yourself, that's great. And it might get you a little ways in your business, but then at the end of the day, you're going to be sitting there with yourself, right? You're going to be sitting there with a lot of product, probably sitting in your living room or your basement or your garage or wherever, and it's not going to be flying off the shelves, right? If you think about some of the most amazing ad campaigns, right? I should say spontaneous ad campaigns. I remember there was a Super Bowl ad during the Beyonce performance I shouldn't say during the performance, but during the Super Bowl where the lights were out and people were like, what's happening? Because the Super Bowl hadn't come back on, but Beyonce had performed. We're like, okay, so what's happening? And Oreo I think they had an ad agency do this, but they said, Oreo, even better in the dark or something like this. And it stuck with me so much that I remember that particular moment in time thinking, God, they're good, right? And it's not that they were saying something profound, right? Oreos are good in the dark. It was a moment in time that they were able to say, we know our audience will get this because our audience, they do eat Oreos in the dark. Or maybe we want to pull in a new audience because we have this moment in time. And I think that if you look at each different piece of content as your moment in time to actually move people, to have them experience your brand in a new way, then that is a really good strategy to run with, because it's not just about the totality of the plan. It's about what little pieces inside the plan make up the bigger puzzle, right? And if you can have those incremental steps to let people in on who you are, what you do, what you can do for people, how you can transform lives, all of those things are very important. And it goes back to what I was talking about before, which is storytelling. And if you can become a better storyteller, then every single time you have that moment to capture someone's imagination, to blow their mind with a piece of information, to entertain them, to have them like belly aching laughing, then that is a moment that they will take with them. And what you want is to be memorable. You want your content to stand leaps and bounds above everyone else's, because when you know it and I know it, you're on the scroll, you're like, yeah, I'm bored. That's my little girl. She actually was looking at YouTube the other day, and she's like, Mom, I'm bored. And I'm like, yeah, because the content that she was looking at was not made for her, right? It wasn't resonating with her. It was probably too young for her. She was, watching a younger kid show. But when you do resonate with your audience and you do actually make a memory for someone, then that's where you're golden, right? If you can say to someone like, hey, were you watching that makeup tutorial? Oh my gosh, did you see what she did with that eyeliner, right? Or whatever. And you take that with you, and the next time you do your makeup, you do the eyeliner, right? It's that memory of what people are putting out. Because I watch makeup tutorials all the time. I see them and I'm like, ooh, that's cool. That's a cool little shade. That's sparkly, right? But what makes it different, right? Was it that the person was lip syncing while they were doing it? Was it that they actually did a long form tutorial where they actually took the time to show you what they were doing? Was it that they gave you the 5 simple steps really easy and you could be like, boom, 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 got it done? Was it that? Was it the idea that it was quick? What was it about that made you remember it, or made you save it or share it or comment on it or like it, right? And so when you think about content marketing, it's all about being able to tell a story that people remember and having that story stand out amongst all of the other content. when I started talking on this particular live, I was talking about how people talk about, you need to add value, right? I talked about my TikTok video that I put on here about you need to add value, and how I'm sick and tired of people saying, just add value, and people will come running to you, right? People will flock to your business and they will love you. And it's like, you know what? No one knows what add value really means, right? If you just say that vaguely, like, oh, just add value to your stuff. And it's like, what do you mean? What are you saying? And a lot of social media gurus, I put that in quotes, will say, start adding value. Just start adding value to your content. And it's like, you know what? Just tell me exactly what I need to do. Because I think a lot of people are like, I don't know what the hell that means. I don't know what she's talking about when she says add value. I'm adding value, right? And what I mean is, if you can add more of you into your content, that is adding value. Maybe that's more of your time so that your content is better. Maybe that's more of your effort or your energy so that your content is elevated a little bit more. Maybe that's more of your expertise and breaking down really complex frameworks. That might be what you need that's missing. Maybe it's a matter of putting your face on there more, right? And so when people say add value, I can't stand it when someone says add value and then they don't follow it up with what that really means. Because if you just say add value, that's vague. That means nothing to me, and I'm never going to love you for it. I'm just not. You're not the person for me. And everyone has their person, right? Everyone has that person that speaks to them. Everyone has a person that is like leaps and bounds above everyone else, and you're like, ooh, she dropped that fire today, right? She dropped it so much that I'm coming back tomorrow and the next day and the next day for some more. And if you just say add value, no one cares, right? Because add value is so vague that it's almost like BS, right? To me, it's just a BS line, right? So if you're saying add value to someone, you follow that up. And with me, if I'm saying add value to your content, that means add more of you. Add more of your expertise, add more of your time and energy to every single content that you're putting in the ether, right? Because if you're not adding more of you, then I'm getting someone else, right? I'm getting someone else, and that's not your vision, right? I put on, I have something on LinkedIn. If you're not following me on LinkedIn, you should, because I do a lot of business content over there. And I have something that I started last week called Style and Strategy Daily. And I'm doing daily tips that will help you move your business to the next place. And what I talked about last week was when you're looking at your own content, if you are a leader in your business and you haven't had a vision for your business that is far enough out or detailed enough, you can't delegate what people don't know. Does that make sense? You can certainly put in the comments, like, if that makes sense, or put a heart or put a star or whatever it is that you want to do. If it makes sense to you, I want to see it in the comments, because for me, if you're a leader and you're like, hey, I'm just going to delegate that out, I'm just going to have her do it, right? But you only give people a certain amount of steps, then they can only actually go through and do what you tell them, right? If you leave it up to them, then they're going to be putting out their vision, not your vision. And so what I put on Style and Strategy Daily last week on LinkedIn is that if you want to delegate, your delegation only goes as far as your vision. And so if you don't have a vision for your business, and you don't have a vision for whatever piece of content that you're putting out there, and you're like, hey, they're gonna do it, then you're leaving your vision to someone else. And it's good if you have a social media manager or a marketing firm or agency that's gonna do that for you, because they can come back and say, here's what we have for you, this is what we've outlined, all you need to do is sign off. That's one way. But if you are doing it for yourself, and then you're like, oh, I got a VA for that. And I'm like, what? Like, they're only gonna do what you tell them to do, right? They're only going to have enough bandwidth to actually complete the work that you've actually outlined. And so if you don't have a vision for your content, no one's going to give it to you, right? No one's going to say to you that, oh, well, here's what you should do, right? If you have your business, you know way more about what you want for your actual business than anybody else does. And that's a good thing. And if you can then take that knowledge and take your vision and put it into a visual and a strategic message, then your content marketing will be on fire, because no one can do what you do. That's what I always say. Like, no one can do what you do. And that makes you very unique, right? And a lot of times people are like, oh, how can I stand out in this, really, really busy social media platform? And I don't, I'm like, you know how you stand out? You start showing up, right? You start showing up for your audience that you already have, even if it's 5 people, right? If it's 5 people, it can double to 10 people just by people saying, wow, she responded to my comment. Because you know what? People talk like that. Oh my gosh, did you know that, I think I actually commented on a Anya Heinmark bag this morning, and they actually liked my comment. And I was like, okay, Anya. Like, that means that they have a social media person that is sitting there going, I like that comment. I'm going to respond to that comment. And that's really how you're building your relationships. If you are able to put into perspective, like I said, your audience numbers, and then look at the assessment of the actual metrics of who's liking, commenting, sharing, and saving what you're doing, that perspective will help you stay consistent, because you will see the incremental growth. It's not about, I blew up and I had 20,000 followers in one day. Is that sustainable? Probably not. And that's because even some of the biggest people on TikTok really don't even have more than 1 or 2 or 3 million followers, right? There's a few that have like some significant numbers, but it's not a whole bunch of people. So some of the people, oh, thank you for the heart. Some of the people that you see on here who have substantial followings and have a lot of good information really only have like 20,000 followers, right? And they've consistently held on to those followers. What I think is really easy for some people to do is lose followers, right? If you're not following our this account, my profile, College of Style, please do. If you've even learned just one thing, I would love to see you back here again, because I want to help improve your business and the health of your business. I do design-led content marketing for brands and personal brands that really want to move the needle on their business through the visual and strategic communication aspects. So if you are liking this content, feel free to follow us here on TikTok and also on Instagram. Instagram, it is at My College of Style. So I hope that is something that you are able to do today, because I want to see you back here. I'm going to be doing Social Strategy Sundays every Sunday at 9 o'clock Pacific time. And I try to do on TikTok, I try to do a little like timer, the little countdown for an event, so that it notifies people who are following me. But what I think is really important, no matter who you are and where your business is at, is to really think about where you want to be. Because a lot of times we are trying to, it's like a rat race, right? It's like a day-to-day. You're just trying to make something happen. Like yesterday, I told my mom, I was like, I posted on LinkedIn, I posted on TikTok, I posted on Instagram, I scheduled all this content on Hootsuite to go out to all of my Twitter. And I was like, I had a good day, right? And I did a live and I did this. And she was like, ooh, you did really good yesterday. And I was like, yes, but I had time to do it, right? And I think a lot of times as we look at our business, we don't feel like we have a lot of time, right? And the time suck that is our daily life, and what happens in our daily life is really hard, right? You are just dealing with like getting out of bed and taking a shower and putting some makeup on and trying to like feel good, right? And that sometimes gets in the way of moving things along in your business. And so I totally get it. I get it that people aren't able to show up all the time for their business. But if you can make it a priority for yourself in quarter 4, because now we're in quarter 4 for the next, several months, to just show up every day for your business. It will move mountains, because it's a commitment, right? Not to anyone else, but to yourself. And I think that if you have that commitment and are able to think about the perspective aspect of content marketing, then you will be much more confident when you do show up. Because it's not about having 5,000 people on your lives, right? That's great, because then you have that many that many people listening and that many people's attention, whether it's on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or wherever it is that you do your live streams. It's really important to think about the perspective, and that those people showed up for you, and they're taking their time out of their day to show up for you. And so I want to know, for people who have been with me for a little bit, what is your business? Put it in the comments if you have a business, and what exactly you sell, or if you have a physical product or a digital product. I want to know. Put it in the comments. If you're watching this on a replay, because I'm also doing Instagram Live right now, feel free to put it in the comments and put #replay as well. I think that it's very important that we are constantly asking each other to put out there in the world what we do. Right? What do we do? What do we sell? What do we make? Who do we help? Right? Because as we are promoting ourselves and our own businesses, it's always good to uplift other people. And if I can help you do that, I definitely want to do that. So definitely put it in the comments if you have a business, if you help other people with their businesses, whatever it is that you do. I would love to know. As I wrap up, because I've gone on and on this morning, as I wrap this up, I definitely want you to know that you can send me a DM on Instagram. Our account is @mycollegeofstyle. You can follow us on or join us on the College of Style Facebook group, which is facebook.com/groups/the College of Style. And I want to work with you directly. So you can just schedule your free 15-minute consultation with me by going to collegeofstyle.link/discovery call. Again, that's collegeofstyle.link/discovery call. And we can set up a time to see if it's good to work together on your branding for your business, getting your content marketing in the right place to move the needle for your business. I think that it's very important to not only talk the talk, but walk the walk. And that's why I work with one-on-one with clients, as well as a program that I have coming out in the fall, in just a few months, that is called Styled to the Nines. And it is going to help you elevate your designs and your messaging on Instagram. So if you want to be part of the VIP waitlist for that, you can just go to collegeofstyle.com/styled to the nines. Or you can just visit our Instagram page @mycollegeofstyle and click on the link in the bio, and it will take you right there. So if you're on our TikTok page right now, you can just go to my profile. You can click that Instagram button and then click on the link in the bio to go to